March 14th, 2006 was a Tuesday. In the county hospital in Tifton, Georgia, a 23-year-old woman named Carla Reyes had been in labor for 11 hours. She was alone. The baby's father had left 4 months earlier, not dramatically, not with a fight, just gone one morning the way some people go, leaving behind a half-empty closet and a silence that spread through the apartment like water. Carla's mother lived in Tampa. She had called her at 2 in the morning when the contractions started, and her mother had said she would come as soon as she could get a bus ticket, and she had not come. The delivery was difficult. The baby came early 5 weeks, the doctor said, which was not catastrophic, but was enough to put the infant into a category that required immediate attention. Carla heard the baby cry once. She was certain of that. One short sound, not the full-throated cry she had read about in the parenting books she had borrowed from the library, but a sound, a real sound. She remembered reaching toward it. Then, they took the baby from the room. 20 minutes later, she had been counting the tiles on the ceiling, a habit she had developed over the 11 hours of labor, a way of keeping herself present. A nurse came back in. Not the doctor. The nurse. She sat on the edge of the bed. She took Carla's hand. She said the baby had not made it. Carla Reyes was 23 years old and alone in a hospital room in Tifton, Georgia, and the woman holding her hand was telling her that her daughter was dead. She believed her. She believed her, because what else do you do when a nurse in a hospital takes your hand and speaks in that specific, careful voice, the voice trained for this exact moment, the voice that is low and soft and gives the information without rushing it? You believe her. You have no reason not to. You are 23 years old and you have been in labor for 11 hours, and you heard your daughter cry once, and now she is gone. And the woman in front of you with the kind eyes is explaining that sometimes this happens, that the baby was early, that the doctors did everything they could. Carla asked to see her. The nurse said it was better not to, that the doctors had to complete their work, that it could be arranged later if she needed it. Later never came. The arrangements were handled by the hospital, she was told. The paperwork would be sent to her. She was discharged the following morning with a prescription for something to help with the milk and a phone number for a grief counselor and nothing else. She drove home to the apartment alone. She sat in the parking lot for 45 minutes before she went inside. The paperwork never came. For 17 years, Carla Reyes would return to that detail when the doubt arrived, and the doubt arrived regularly, in the specific, quiet way of something that has never resolved. She had signed nothing at the hospital about her daughter's death. She had received no death certificate. When she called the county health department 6 months later, asking for the record, she was told the paperwork was being processed. When she called again a year later, she was connected to someone who had no record of her name or her daughter's. She filed a complaint. It went nowhere. She hired a lawyer, one she could not afford, who worked on a payment plan she could barely meet, and the lawyer spent 3 months making calls and getting nowhere, and finally telling her that county hospital record management in rural Georgia was, in her professional assessment, a disaster, and that the absence of paperwork did not necessarily indicate anything beyond incompetence. Incompetence. Carla sat with that word for years. She sat with it the way you sit with an explanation that fits the facts but does not fit the feeling. The feeling was this: she had heard her daughter cry. To understand what was lost and what was not lost, you need to understand who Carla Reyes was before March 14, 2006. She had grown up in Valdosta, the youngest of 4 children, the only daughter of a woman who worked double shifts at a chicken processing plant, and a father who had been present for the first 12 years of her life and then was not. She had graduated high school on time, which in her family was considered an achievement, and had taken a job at a call center in Tifton, a 90-minute drive, which was far enough to feel like a new start and close enough to come home when she needed to. She was not naive. She had learned early that the systems people trusted, hospitals, courts, government offices, did not always function the way people believed they did. She had learned this from her mother, who had spent 2 years trying to correct an error in her Social Security file. She had learned it from her own experience navigating the health insurance questions at the call center job, where the coverage she was supposed to have had a gap no one could explain. What she had not been prepared for was the feeling that the system had taken something from her and then misplaced the paperwork. She moved back to Valdosta in 2007, a year after the birth. The Tifton apartment held too many of the months she had been pregnant, the second-hand crib she had bought and assembled herself, the yellow paint she had put on the nursery wall, the stack of library books about infant development. She left the crib. She took the books back. She drove south on I-75 and did not look back. She got a job at an insurance agency in Valdosta. She was good at it, patient, precise, capable of managing complicated information across multiple files simultaneously. Her supervisor said she was the best claims processor he had ever hired. She worked there for 9 years. She did not have other children. Not because she had decided not to, but because the specific combination of factors required had not presented itself, and somewhere around 2012, she had stopped thinking about it in active terms and started thinking about it in passive ones. Maybe someday. Maybe not. Either way. She thought about her daughter on March 14th every year. Not just on that date, but that date was when it arrived with its full weight, when she would wake at 5 a.m. and lie still in the dark of whatever apartment she was in and count backward from the year, adding one more to the number. 7 years. 8, 9, 10, 11 years since the sound. She had thought about returning to Tifton many times. She had driven there twice, both times without announcing herself, and had sat in the parking lot of the hospital without going inside. The second time was in 2014. She sat for 40 minutes, then drove back to Valdosta. She had not decided what she was looking for. She was not sure the hospital could give it to her. What she was looking for was not inside the building. What she was looking for was 17 years away, in a house in Lowndes County she did not know existed. In 2015, she found a support group online. Not a support group for stillbirth, which would have been the obvious one. A support group for mothers who suspected their children had been taken from them at birth, a small private group. People who had stories that sounded implausible until you heard several of them in the same room and understood that the practice had a history, that it had a name, that it had been documented in cases ranging from the 1950s through the early 2000s in hospitals across the American South and Southwest, where certain populations were considered, by certain staff in certain moments, to be unfit to parent. Young mothers, unmarried mothers, mothers without family in the room. She found the group by accident, searching late one night for something else entirely. She had been looking for information about a different administrative dispute, something related to her health insurance, and a forum thread had linked to another forum thread. And eventually she found herself reading a post from a woman in Alabama who described, almost word for word, the same soft voice, the same 20 minutes, the same absence of a body. Carla read that post 4 times. Then she read the comments. There were 31 comments. Many of them were from other women describing their own versions of the same story, different hospitals, different decades, different details, but the same architecture. The soft voice, the absence of a body, the paperwork that never came. She did not say definitively that this was what had happened to her. She had no proof. She had a missing certificate, a phone number for a grief counselor, and the memory of one cry. But she had, for the first time in 9 years, something else. She had other people who had heard the same kind of silence she had heard, and who had not been able to explain it either, and who had not stopped believing their own memory of what had happened in the room. She read the other women's stories for 6 months before she posted her own. She read about a woman in Mississippi whose son had been found 26 years later, living 4 hours away, and the reunion had been complicated and partial and was still, by the woman's account, something she was learning how to hold. She read about a woman in Texas who had found a name and an address for her daughter and had written letters for 3 years without a single response, and who had decided, finally, that she would keep writing them anyway, not for a response, but because the writing itself was a way of refusing to let the silence become permanent. She read about 2 women who were still searching, with nothing, the way Carla was still searching with nothing, and she recognized, in their words, the specific quality of a search that does not stop, because stopping is not a decision available to the person doing it. 38 women responded within 24 hours of her post. None of them could give her what she needed. What they gave her was the vocabulary for the thing she had been carrying for 9 years, which turned out to be more than she had expected. Having words for something does not resolve it, but it changes the relationship to it. It moves a private, sourceless pain into something with edges, something that can be named, and once named, something that can be acted on in ways that an unnamed thing cannot. She named it. Her daughter had been alive when she left that hospital. Whether her daughter was still alive 17 years later, that the group could not tell her. What they could tell her was how to begin. Several of the women had used the same nonprofit organization in Atlanta. Several of them recommended it carefully, with the specific caution of people who did not want to give false hope, but also did not want to withhold a real option. In 2016, Carla contacted the nonprofit. They took her case after a 6-month review period, not because her case was weak, but because the organization was small and the cases were many. And a 6-month review period was simply how long it took for a case to move from the intake queue to an assigned attorney. They had reviewed 6 similar cases in the previous 2 years involving the same general region of rural Georgia. They knew what they were looking at before they had read a single page of Carla's file. Their paralegal, a woman named Renata Ford, reviewed everything Carla had: her own medical records from the labor and delivery, the discharge paperwork that listed no infant, a letter from the county health department in 2007 saying her records were being processed, a second letter from 2008 that said the same thing in slightly different wording, a third letter from 2010 that was never answered at all, and the name of the nurse Patricia Wharton written in Carla's own handwriting on the back of a grief counselor's card. Because even in the hospital that night, in the first hours of her grief, something in her had known to write it down. Renata Ford called Carla after reviewing the file. She said, "I want to be honest with you about what this looks like. I've seen cases like this before. I can't promise you an outcome, but I can tell you that what you have here is not nothing. The fact that you wrote down a name 17 years ago that matters. Most people don't think to do that. You did." Carla had not thought of it as something she'd done. She had thought of it as something that had happened to her, an instinct she couldn't take credit for. But Renata's framing stayed with her. She had done something. In the worst moment of her life, some part of her had still been working, still been gathering what it could. Patricia Wharton had retired in 2011. The nonprofit located her in Moultrie, Georgia. She declined to speak to anyone connected to the case. The hospital had been acquired by a regional health system in 2012. Their legal department responded to the nonprofit's initial inquiry with a form letter about legacy records and processing timelines. The records request was filed in October 2016. What followed was the specific procedural exhaustion that anyone who has dealt with an institutional cover-up knows intimately, the kind where nothing is actively refused, everything is simply delayed, the timelines extend, the callbacks are missed, the contact person changes, the new contact person needs to be brought up to speed. The bringing up to speed takes several months. And by the time the new person is current, the request has been waiting long enough that they want to review it from the beginning. The nonprofit followed up every 90 days. They received responses to 3 of those follow-ups over 6 years. In January 2018, Carla received a call from the nonprofit's lead attorney. She said the hospital's legal team had indicated they were close to producing the records. She said Carla should prepare herself for the possibility that the records would not contain what they hoped, that records from 2006 in a rural Georgia County hospital were genuinely incomplete in many cases, and that absence of evidence was not evidence. She said all of this professionally and carefully, and Carla listened and said she understood and thanked her and hung up and went into the bathroom at work and stood at the sink for 3 minutes. 3 minutes was how long she gave herself. Then she washed her hands, dried them, and went back to her desk. She had developed this practice, the 3 minutes, sometime around 2011. She did not track when it started, but she noticed at some point that she had become very precise about it. 3 minutes, then back to work. Not as a form of suppression, but as a form of maintenance. She had a life that required her presence. She showed up to it. The 3 minutes was what she gave to the other thing, the thing that was not resolved. The thing that lived in the background of every ordinary day, like a frequency she was always slightly tuned to. In March 2022, 7 months after the nonprofit's 4th formal demand letter, a partial records package arrived from the hospital's legal department. It contained admission forms, medication logs, a delivery record. The delivery record listed a live birth. Female, 5 weeks premature, 4 pounds, 11 ounces. No subsequent death record, no transfer record, no record of what happened to the infant after the delivery. The paralegal called Carla on a Thursday afternoon. She was at work. She went to the parking lot. She sat in her car. The call lasted 12 minutes. When it was over, she drove back inside and finished her shift. She processed 11 claims. She answered 4 phone calls. She ate the lunch she had brought. Her supervisor would later say he had no idea anything had happened that day. She had spent 16 years learning how to keep going. The skill did not leave her the moment the proof arrived. Skills don't work that way. What happened next, the reconstruction of where her daughter had gone, took another 18 months and involved the work of 2 nonprofit attorneys, a forensic document examiner, and a woman in Moultrie, Georgia, who had been declining to speak to anyone for 6 years, and who finally, in March 2023, answered the phone when it rang at 7 in the morning. What can be said from the partial reconstruction that the investigation produced is this. Within 6 weeks of her birth, the infant had been placed in a private home in Lowndes County, Georgia, not through the state's foster care system, not through a licensed adoption agency registered with the state, through an informal arrangement that certain hospital staff had been making, in certain cases, for a period that the investigators believed extended back at least to the late 1990s. The cases had shared characteristics. The birth mother was young, unmarried, without family present during delivery, and without the resources or connections that might have given her grounds to dispute a hospital's account of what had happened to her infant. The infants were placed with families who had been trying to have children and who were told the birth mothers had consented. The families paid what the documents described as a facilitation fee, a sum that appeared in one record as covering administrative costs and in another as covering medical expenses, which was a way of making the transaction look like something other than what it was. The family who received this particular infant in 2006 had been trying to have a child for 8 years. They were good people who had wanted something very much and had been given it through a channel they did not fully understand, by a woman they trusted because she wore a hospital uniform and spoke with the quiet authority of someone who had done this before. They were told the birth mother was a young woman who had agreed to the arrangement. They accepted this because they needed to accept it. They took the baby home and named her Mia and raised her as their daughter in every way that having a daughter means. They had been lied to. This is not exculpation. The nonprofit's attorneys have been careful about that distinction. What they have established from documents and interviews is that the family who raised Mia did not knowingly receive a stolen child. They received a child from a woman who had institutional authority and who constructed a story that had the surface structure of a legitimate private adoption. The moral weight of what happened rests primarily with the people who constructed that story and who profited from it. The legal weight of what happened is still being distributed. What the reconstruction also established was that Mia had been healthy from her first days. She had gained weight in the neonatal unit on schedule. She had been discharged into the family's care without incident. She had grown up 30 miles from Carla Reyes, in a county adjacent to the one where her birth mother worked, and they had never crossed paths, not at a grocery store, not at a gas station, not at a traffic light on a Tuesday afternoon. 30 miles, 17 years, no crossing, until Mia found a photograph in a box. The years between 2006 and 2022 were not only the years of Carla's asking, they were the years of her life, which continued being a life regardless of what was unresolved in the background of it. She had a best friend named Denise who had known her since high school and who had moved to New Orleans in 2013. Denise was the only person who knew the full texture of what Carla was carrying, not just the facts but the quality of it. The specific weight of a loss that the world did not fully recognize as a loss. The world offered her grief counseling for a baby who had died. It had no language for what she was actually experiencing, which was the grief of a baby she believed had been taken and could not prove. Denise had understood this without being told to. She had sat with it and witnessed it. This was the thing Carla was most grateful for in her life, for a long time. The company of someone who did not require her to resolve the thing before she deserved to have it witnessed. Carla had a garden. She had started it in 2009, in the small yard behind her Valdosta apartment. She grew tomatoes and collard greens, and, later, a climbing rose she had planted in 2017 that had taken 3 years to establish itself and now covered most of the back fence in October green. She had thought when she planted the rose that she would be there until it was established. She had stayed. She was still there. She had not dated seriously since 2008. A man named Warren had been in her life for 8 months before the specific weight of the unresolved thing had made it impossible to be fully present. He had not done anything wrong. He had encountered the part of her that was not available and had, eventually, moved towards someone whose interior life had fewer occupied rooms. Carla had examined this in therapy in 2013 and again in 2019, and had concluded that her interior life was not malformed by what had happened, but had been shaped by it, and that she was not required to be different from what she was. This was the therapist's conclusion before it was hers, and then it became hers. The period between March 2022, when the delivery record arrived, and October 2023, when Mia knocked on her door, was the period of knowing a partial thing. The delivery record had confirmed that Carla's daughter had been born alive. It had not told her whether the girl was still alive. It had not told her where she had gone or who had raised her. It had told her only that the system had not killed her daughter, that the system had taken her and lied about it, which was a different category of wrong and one that the law was potentially equipped to address. She had received this partial knowledge and continued going to work and continuing with the nonprofit's process and calling Denise on Sunday evenings and checking the climbing rose for aphids. Patricia Wharton had called her on October 7, 2023, a week before. She said, "There is a girl who has been asking questions. She may come to see you. I wanted you to be prepared." Carla said, "What did you tell her?" She said, "Your name, where to find you." Carla sat down on the edge of the kitchen table. She said, "How old is she?" Patricia Wharton said, 17. A long pause. Carla said, is she well? Patricia Wharton said, she's a good girl, she writes good letters. Carla said, all right, thank you for telling me. She sat at the table for a while after the call ended. She looked out at the backyard. The climbing rose on the fence, fully leafed in October. 3 years established, finally where she had meant for it to be when she planted it. 7 days later, at 11:47 on a Saturday morning, someone knocked 3 times on her door. The girl had taken a bus from Lowndes County to Valdosta, 3 blocks from the bus station to the address. An October morning, a piece of paper in her hands. She knocked 3 times. Carla opened the door. Mia grew up in Lowndes County, in a house her parents had bought the year before she arrived, a 3-bedroom house with a porch and a yard with a single pecan tree that her father had planted the week they brought her home. He had planted it because his own father had planted a tree for each of his children, and he had wanted to do the same, and the tree had grown alongside Mia in the specific way that things planted at a child's birth grow alongside the child slowly, steadily, becoming part of the landscape of the family without anyone marking the individual days of its growth. Her parents were not wealthy. Her father worked for the county roads department. Her mother taught 2nd grade at the elementary school 3 streets over. They had tried for 8 years to have a child before Mia arrived, and the 8 years had left marks on their marriage that Mia would not fully understand until she was older, the specific exhaustion of hoping repeatedly and being disappointed repeatedly. The way it had worn grooves into how they spoke to each other, how they planned, how they allowed themselves to want things. When Mia arrived, something in the house had exhaled. Mia had been, for both of them, the end of 8 years of a specific kind of waiting, and everything about how they raised her carried the weight and the gratitude of that. She was a good student, methodical, precise, the kind of girl who organized her notes before class and asked follow-up questions after class. She played volleyball for 3 years, middle blocker, not the most naturally gifted player on the team, but the most reliable, the one who showed up to every practice and ran every drill completely. She worked part-time at a grocery store starting at 15, in the produce section, and her manager said she was the only 15-year-old he'd ever had who actually rotated the stock without being told twice. She had a best friend named Jasmine, who had known her since 3rd grade. Jasmine would later say that Mia was the most self-contained person she had ever met. Not cold, not closed off. Just someone who processed things internally and completely before they came out the other side. Jasmine said she always knew when Mia was working through something because she would go quiet in a specific way, different from her normal quiet. Like a machine running a task you couldn't see the inputs or outputs of, only the hum. She had been running that task since she was 14. The photograph was in a box in the top of her parents' closet. She had not been snooping, she had been sent to retrieve a winter blanket. And the box had fallen when she pulled the blanket out, and its contents had scattered across the floor. Among them, a small photograph of a woman she did not recognize, holding an infant wrapped in hospital blankets. The woman in the photograph was young, early 20s, dark eyes, dark hair, her face turned slightly toward the infant in the specific way of new mothers in hospitals, the exhausted and overwhelmed way. On the back of the photograph, in handwriting she did not recognize, March 2006. She had been born in March 2006. She was 14 years old. She put the photograph back in the box. She put the box back on the shelf. She took the blanket downstairs and said nothing. She sat with it for 2 years. Not in a paralyzed way. She went to school. She played volleyball. She worked at the grocery store. She did homework at the kitchen table while her parents watched television in the next room. She was, by every external measure, a normal teenager, having a normal adolescence in a normal house. But she was also, in the background of all of it, running the task. The 2 years were not wasted years, even though they were years spent not asking a question that mattered. Mia would say later that she needed the 2 years not to gather courage exactly, but to gather the specific kind of certainty that comes from sitting with something long enough that you stop hoping it will resolve itself without your involvement. At 14, she had half believed there might be an ordinary explanation. A family friend, a relative she didn't know about. By 16, she had run out of ordinary explanations. The photograph stayed in the box. The box stayed on the shelf. But Mia had stopped being able to walk past that closet without feeling the specific gravitational pull of the things she had not yet asked. At 16, she asked her parents directly, "Am I adopted?" They said no. They said it quickly, too quickly, Mia thought afterward, and they held the word with more weight than a simple no should carry. She noticed. She filed it away. She did not push further, not yet. The year that followed was, by Mia's account, the strangest year of her life, not because anything dramatic happened, but because she now knew that her parents had answered a question incorrectly. And she did not yet know whether that meant they had lied to her or whether they themselves did not know the truth. Both possibilities were available. Neither felt right. She watched her parents more carefully that year than she had ever watched them before, not suspiciously, but with the specific attention of someone trying to read a text that might contain a hidden message. She found nothing conclusive. What she found instead was the ordinary evidence of two people who loved her completely and who were also, in some way she couldn't name, carrying something. At 17, she asked differently. She had thought about how to phrase it for weeks, not scripting it exactly, but turning over different versions, discarding the ones that felt like accusations and the ones that felt like she was giving them an escape route. What she landed on was direct without being cruel. She said, "I found a photograph. It says March 2006 on the back. I was born in March 2006. The woman in it doesn't look like anyone in our family. I need you to tell me the truth." Her parents asked her to sit down. What followed was one of the hardest conversations Mia had ever witnessed two people have while trying to protect someone they loved. Her parents were not bad people. They had received a child through an arrangement they had been told was legitimate. They had been told the birth mother had consented. They had believed this because they had wanted a child for 8 years, and the woman who told them had a nurse's authority and a kind manner, and the answer to the thing they most needed in the world. They had taken the baby home and loved her completely and raised her, and she had become the whole of what their family was. And now they were being asked to account for a transaction they had entered into in good faith and had never examined since, because examining it would have meant questioning the foundation of everything that had followed. They told her the truth, all of it, as much as they knew. Her father cried steadily through most of the telling, not dramatically. Just a continuous quiet leaking that he made no attempt to hide. Her mother cried less, but her hands shook the entire time, and at one point she had to put down the cup of tea she was holding because she couldn't keep it steady. Mia sat very still. She had expected, going into the conversation, that she would feel angry. She found instead that she felt something closer to grief, not for herself exactly, but for the three of them, for the specific shape of a family built on a foundation none of them had chosen. All of them having to live with consequences none of them had created. When her parents finished, she asked one question. "Do you know the name of the woman who arranged the placement?" Patricia Wharton. Retired, Moultrie. Her father said the name like it cost him something to say it. She wrote a first letter to Patricia Wharton 3 weeks later. She drafted it 5 times. The final version was careful and polite and asked only for the name of the birth mother, nothing about the circumstances. Nothing accusatory, just a request for one piece of information from a person she had never met. She mailed it on a Tuesday. She checked the mailbox every day for 3 weeks. No response. The second letter was not careful. It was not impolite. Mia was incapable, by temperament, of being impolite even when she had reason to be, but it was direct in a way the first letter was not. She wrote, I know you were involved in my placement in March 2006. I am not trying to create legal problems for you. I am 17 years old and I need to know who I am. I need one name. That is all I am asking for. She mailed it on a Friday. Patricia Wharton called her the following Tuesday evening. Mia did not recognize the number and almost did not answer. The call lasted 4 minutes. Patricia Wharton's voice was older than Mia expected and quieter, and there was something in it. Mia would describe this later as a kind of relief, as if the call were something Patricia Wharton had been waiting 17 years to either give or avoid, and had finally decided to give. At the end of the 4 minutes, Mia had a name. Carla Reyes. Valdosta, Georgia. She found a Carla Reyes in Valdosta who worked at an insurance agency through a basic public records search that took her 11 minutes. She found an address. She did not call ahead. She had thought about it and had decided that a phone call would give Carla the option to say no before they had ever been in the same room. And Mia did not want to give her that option. Not because she wanted to corner her, because she believed with a specific clarity that had carried her through 2 years of silence and 2 letters and 1 4-minute phone call, that if she could just be standing in front of this woman, something would be settled that no phone call could settle. She told her parents where she was going and why. Her mother held her face in her hands for a long time without speaking. Mia could see her mother working through something, the specific vertigo of watching your child walk toward the woman whose existence you had spent 17 years not having to think about, and understanding that this walking toward was not a betrayal of you, even though it might feel like one for a moment before the feeling resolved into something else. Her mother said, "Go. You should go." Her father drove her to the bus station. He did not say much in the car. At the station, before she got out, he said, "Whatever you find, you're still ours. That doesn't change." Mia said, "I know, Dad." She took the bus. October 14th, 2023 was a Saturday. Carla Reyes was home. She had been planning to clean the kitchen and had instead been sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold, looking at her phone without reading anything, in the distracted way of someone whose mind is somewhere else without being sure where. She had been in this state often in the past few months, since the nonprofit attorney had called her about the delivery record and the investigation had reopened, and things were moving in a direction that felt real for the first time in 17 years. Moving felt different from waiting. Waiting required a specific kind of numbness she had developed into a skill. Moving required being awake, and being awake was harder. The knock at the door was 3 quick knocks. She crossed the kitchen. She opened the door. There was a girl on her porch, 17 years old. Dark eyes, dark hair, pulled back from a face that held still the way a face holds still, when the person behind it has rehearsed this moment many times and arrived to find that rehearsal and reality are not the same thing. She was wearing a jacket slightly too large for her. She was holding a piece of paper folded in thirds. She looked like Carla. Not in every feature, not in the way that announces itself immediately, the way you see in twin studies and genetic portraits. In the structure, in the way the face was arranged beneath the surface, the set of the jaw, the slight angle of the outer corners of the eyes, the particular quality of stillness that Carla had been told her entire life was unusual in her, that made people say she was hard to read, that made her supervisor say she was the calmest person he had ever watched receive a difficult phone call. The girl had it too. She said, "My name is Mia. I was born March 14th, 2006. I think you're my mother." Carla looked at her for a long moment. She did not cry immediately. She would explain this later to the nonprofit paralegal. She didn't cry because she had been preparing for this possibility for 17 years in the specific background way of someone who has never stopped believing the thing was real. And when it arrived in front of her, the first response was not grief or relief, but confirmation. The enormous and specific relief of a calculation that has been running for 17 years, finally returning a result. She stepped back from the door. She said, "Come inside." They sat at the kitchen table. Carla made more coffee. Mia accepted a cup and held it in both hands and said she wanted to ask questions first. If that was all right, and Carla said that was all right. Mia asked them systematically, the birth date, the hospital, the name of the nurse, what had happened in the 20 minutes, what Carla had done, what the nonprofit had found, what the delivery record said. Carla answered all of them. She answered them the way she answered claim inquiries at the insurance agency, precisely, chronologically, without excess. She told Mia about the 11 hours and the one cry and the nurse's soft voice and the way she had asked to see her daughter and been told it was better not to. She told her about the paperwork that never came and the health department that had no record. She told her about the support group in 2015 and the nonprofit in 2016 and the 6 years of follow-up and the delivery record that finally arrived in March 2022 showing a live birth with no death record following it. She told her about the 3 minutes. Mia was quiet when she heard that. She sat with it. Then she said, "My parents are good people. I need you to know that before anything else." Carla said, "I believe you." Mia said, "They didn't know. They were told my birth mother had consented. They needed to believe that, and the person who told them had the authority to be believed." Carla said, "I know." Mia said, "This doesn't change who I am to them." Carla said, "I know that too. I'm not here to change it." A pause. Outside, a car pulled into a neighbor's driveway. The refrigerator made its small, regular sound. Mia said, "Did you name me?" Carla was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I was going to name you Eliza, after my grandmother." Mia sat with that. She said, "Eliza." Carla said, "It doesn't mean anything if you don't want it to. I'm just telling you what I had for you." Mia said, "Can I keep Mia?" Carla said, "That's already yours. You don't need my permission for anything that's already yours." At some point in the second hour, Carla got up from the table and went to her bedroom. She came back holding something small and set it on the table between them. The back of a grief counselor's card folded once. A name written in Carla's own handwriting from the morning after her daughter was born. 17 years old. Patricia Wharton. She said, "I wrote it down the night you were born. Something in me knew I'd need it. I didn't know for what yet." Mia looked at the card. She said, "She answered my second letter. She called me." Carla said, "She called me too. A week before you came here. She didn't tell me when. She just said there was a girl who had been writing to her and that I should be ready." Mia looked up from the card. She said, "Were you?" Carla said, "I've been ready since I heard you cry." The DNA test was administered the following week at a clinic in Valdosta. The result came back in 11 days. 99,997% probability. Carla Reyes was Mia's biological mother. The nonprofit filed the result with the Georgia Department of Health and Human Services. A state investigator was assigned to the case. Patricia Wharton was formally interviewed in November 2023. She was 71 years old. The interview lasted 3 hours. A summary of what she disclosed has not been released. The hospital's parent health system received notice of potential litigation in December. Their legal team requested an extension on the response deadline. These processes are ongoing. They are slow. They are the specific slowness of a system being asked to account for things that happened in a different century, in a different management structure, involving people who are retired or dead. They are moving. Carla Reyes goes to the diner on the second Saturday of every month. She orders the same thing, a grilled cheese and tomato soup, which she has ordered since she first started eating there in 2019, long before any of this, because it was the thing on the menu that reminded her of being a child, of her mother's kitchen in the years before the chicken plant shifts had gotten so long that cooking became impossible. Mia has still not settled on a regular order. She has tried the pancakes, the omelet, the chicken and waffles, a boulette, and on one occasion, the meatloaf special, which she said was a mistake she did not intend to repeat. Carla finds this comforting in a way she has tried a few times to articulate and has not been able to precisely. Something about the openness of it, about someone who is still figuring out what she wants, still trying things, still in the part of life where everything is provisional and nothing has to be decided, yet strikes Carla as the most alive possible version of an ordinary thing. Mia has her whole life of orders ahead of her. She is taking her time. Mia is applying to colleges. She wants to study law. She says this without performance, the way she says most things. As a fact, she has decided. When Carla asked her why law specifically, Mia thought about it for a moment and then said, "Because I spent 3 years trying to get one piece of information out of one person, and it took 2 letters and a 4-minute phone call, and I kept thinking the whole time, there has to be a better way to do this. I want to be part of the better way." Carla's supervisor at the insurance agency found out about her daughter because Mia came to pick her up from work one afternoon, and Carla came through the door, and they stood in the parking lot for a moment before walking to the car. He saw it through the glass. He asked later. She said, "My daughter." He said, "I didn't know you had a daughter." She said, "I didn't. For a long time. I do now." He did not ask any further questions, which Carla appreciated. Some people, when she eventually told the fuller story, and she has told it now, to a handful of people, in pieces as it has felt right, have wanted to ask about the legal case, about Patricia Wharton, about what might happen to the hospital. Carla understands the curiosity. She does not always have the energy for it. Her supervisor simply nodded and said, "That's good, Carla. I'm glad," and went back to his desk. She has thought about that exchange more than she expected to. Sometimes the right response to an enormous thing is a small one. Patricia Wharton wrote a letter to the nonprofit in January 2024. It was 3 paragraphs. It acknowledged, for the first time in writing, that she had been involved in the placement of the infant born on March 14, 2006. It did not explain why not in any way that addressed the human cost of what had been done, only in administrative language about how such arrangements had been conducted and who else might have been involved. The nonprofit's lead attorney called it a starting point. She did not say starting point with optimism. She said it with the specific pragmatism of someone who has been working in this field long enough to understand that starting points are where most of the work begins, not where it ends. The investigation continues. There may be other cases. The nonprofit has received 4 new inquiries since Carla's case became part of the public record, from people in neighboring counties who read about the investigation and recognized, in the description of what had happened to Carla, something that matched their own unresolved history. Renata Ford, the paralegal, has been assigned to review all 4. Some things take 17 years to reach their starting point. Some daughters find their way home because their mother's alone, without resources, without the paperwork they were owed, in the parking lot of the hospital, and in the county health department, and in the support group, and in the nonprofit's intake queue, in the parking lots of hospitals they drove to, and sat in, and left without going inside, refused to let one cry be nothing. Carla Reyes heard one sound on the only morning that mattered. She wrote a name on the back of a card. She kept the card for 17 years. Her daughter found a photograph, sat with it for 2 years, wrote 2 letters, took a bus, and knocked 3 times on a door she had never seen before. Some things are worth 17 years. That door was always open.